I want to give proper warning before this episode starts of what you're about to hear in this episode. Motivation is a lie. We're creating a manifesto. Our brains do funky stuff to us when we set goals. And you will be receiving an exact copy of how I prompted ChatGPT in order to create a beautiful vision for 2025 with what every day will look like. So let's get started. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Sweat, Strategy, and Success. If you don't know me already, my name is Soleil, and I have been on the journey for the last year towards creating my own business, my own life, my own lifestyle, my own work-life balance, not having to work a 9 to 5, and most importantly, not having a boss. If you clicked on this episode, it's most likely because you want to create goals for this upcoming year of 2025 that are successful and will change your life by the end of the year. More likely than not, you've created resolutions and goals in the past that you haven't finished, that you haven't completed. And so you have this thought in your head that therefore it doesn't work. More often than not, when we create goals, we create them wrong. Whether they don't have enough clarity, they don't align with who we are, or we've been told that it's because we lack motivation, and I'm going to tell you in a little bit why that's a lie and why motivation doesn't actually play into this at all. So don't believe people when they tell you that you're lacking motivation, because you're not. It's a lie. If you are not finishing your goals, it's most likely for a multitude of other reasons, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And the amazing part about this episode is that we're going to use ChatGPT in order to understand what our year looked like before and what our year is going to look like in this upcoming year and give us actionable tools towards succeeding. But a little secret about this episode is we're not really going to just create goals. We're going to create a few different things. And so a lot of this, you'll need to sit down and you'll need to take the time in order to reflect on your year and get vulnerable and be ready. This actually kind of like when I did this myself, when I sat down and I went through this process with ChatGPT, I kind of did it over a few days because I needed that space for myself in order to sit down and really reflect. And also I was trying to come up with good prompts for you all at the same time, so it kind of took me a few days. But overall, this episode is going to be really fun, very actionable, and you're going to walk away with a manifesto. Because at the end of the day, we know that resolutions aren't working, goals aren't working, and that's because we want to align with who we are. Now, the definition of a manifesto is as follows. A manifesto is a document publicly declaring the position or program of its issuer. A manifesto advances a set of ideas, opinions, or views, but it can also lay out a plan of action. That sounds exactly like what we want to do. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to create a manifesto for our year because it is going to not be, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's going to be, I am this, I'm creating this, and this is what I'm doing. We're creating a manifesto, we're creating a weekly schedule, we're going over your past year, what was important to you, so you can create this manifesto as it aligns with what is important to you and what aligns with who you are as a person. And we're also going to come up with daily goals that you're going to be able to accomplish every single day within that weekly schedule to get to where you want to go. I'm super excited. So let's get started. What do we need? First and foremost, if you want to learn more about goal setting in general and you want to get into the weeds a little bit, I highly recommend you read Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book changed my life, and it really just talks about even the minute steps towards our goals are better than no steps at all. So highly recommend if you're looking to get into building habits a little bit more, because our goals are nothing. Our manifesto is nothing without the habits that we create. So highly recommend this book. And before we also get into anything, I also want to talk about kind of the neuroscience and why setting goals is so important, why it actually changes people's lives. I looked up the science of goal setting, and the first thing that popped up was an article by Culture Partners. Culture Partners helps essentially companies build better cultures at their businesses and whatnot. But in this article specifically, they talk about the neuroscience of goal setting and its impact on culture. We're just going to kind of go over the first part really quick so you can understand. Goal setting has been linked to higher motivation, self-esteem, confidence, and autonomy. Once you get a goal in your head, your brain will continue to nudge you about it until you begin working towards or achieving it. That's why you feel guilty when you don't behave in ways that are conducive to achieving your goals. For example, sitting on the couch when your goal is to exercise more. Studies in neuroscience tell us that goal setting rewires our brains. When we set a goal, we are biologically programming our brains to change or create new behaviors and reach them, because the way our neurons organize is impacted. Creating focus on specific goals allows the brain to create new, stronger bonds between neurons that help increase the likelihood that we achieve our goals. Basically, at the end of the day, goal setting will reshape our brains and put us in the mindset that we need to finish it in order to get where we're going. But how are you supposed to know where you're supposed to be going? What is the end of your year supposed to look like? What is it that you want your goals to be able to achieve? We can say that we want a Porsche or a big house, or we want better relationships with our families. We can say all of these things, but what does it actually mean? And what's really important to recognize here too is that Porsche, that big house, all that jewelry that you want, whatever it may be that seems like something that you may want, there's probably actually something deeper behind it that you need to ask yourself what it is. Most of the time, we don't actually want a Porsche. We want what that Porsche represents to other people. We want to feel loved. We want to feel appreciated. And we feel as though if we get a Porsche, we'll feel more loved and more appreciated. We feel like if we have a bigger house, that people will think that we're smarter or funnier or more accomplished. But in reality, it's that we just want to connect with other people. So when setting these goals, it's important to know, what is it that you actually want at the end of the year? What is it that you're going to accomplish that's going to fulfill you and align with who you really are? So we're going to do that as well. We're going to kind of talk about what it is that you want towards the end of this year as well. But before we do that, one more thing in terms of research, let's look at Edwin Locke's goal setting theory, because this is kind of the foundation of setting all goals. Edwin Locke's goal setting theory argues that for goal setting to be successful with desired outcomes, they must contain the following specific points: clarity, goals need to be specific; challenging, goals must be difficult yet attainable; goals must be accepted; feedback must be provided on goal attainment; goals are more effective when they are used to evaluate the performance; and deadlines improve the effectiveness of goals. A learning goal orientation leads to higher performance than a performance goal orientation, and group goal setting is as important as individual goal setting. There's a few of those things that we'll pull from Edwin Locke's theory on goal setting, but overall, it's really important. So let's get into the good stuff. Let's leave all that neuroscience, stupid, brainy, nerdy stuff behind. And let's actually just talk about ChatGPT prompts, because that's what we're all here for, right? We want our life to be easier. So we are going to involve ChatGPT and let it know all of our secrets so the government can have it. And yeah, I'm getting deep there. Let's move backwards a little bit. Let's do some ChatGPT prompting. This is going to be fun. And one more thing before we get started. There's a few questions that I'm going to need you to ask yourself before we get into the ChatGPT prompting. As Edwin Locke mentions, your goals have to be accepted. You have to want to be able to accomplish your goals. So I need you to ask yourself very honestly and very plainly right now, are you ready to take on these goals? Do you accept that you're going to create goals and that you want to achieve them? Okay, ask yourself that first. And remember here, we're not just creating goals, we're creating a manifesto. A manifesto that is going to take us into this new year, and we're going to feel confident about it, and we are going to kick this year's ass. That's exactly what we're going to do. So we're not just creating goals, we're going to use those goals in order to create a manifesto that's going to create a daily schedule and a weekly schedule for us, and a daily affirmation. So when you're prepared, You can either do this while I'm talking, which would be totally be fine, or you can remember some of this or start and pause as necessary, but create a reflective space around you. Get into a quiet, intentional space for reflection, whatever that may look like. I recommend grabbing a book of some kind, a journal. I have my journal here with me as I do always. Maybe light a candle, play some like gentle music in the background, or whatever your little heart desires. It's really important that you use this time to be open and reflect and to be intentional about this exercise, because it is going to be important in creating your manifesto. So get into a quiet, intentional space to reflect. And if this takes you longer than necessary, aka you do what I do, and it may have taken you a few days, that's totally okay. Just remember to sit back, maybe meditate beforehand or something like that. So create a good space for yourself. So what we're going to do first is that we're going to reflect on our past year, because this is important in aligning with who we are, what we've enjoyed this past year, what we didn't enjoy this past year, and what we're ultimately going to want for our next year. Because a lot of the time what people do wrong is that they create goals that don't align with who they are, and so they're not able to accomplish those goals. So, for example, you are not a weightlifting person. Anybody can be a weightlifting person. Anybody can do it. But if you're a yoga girly, that is okay. You don't need to change your life around to be a weightlifting person. Maybe that means you start weightlifting once a week, or maybe you don't. But maybe you like to be more intentional in your movements and sitting down with yourself and being in community with others. And all of that is possible with weightlifting. I'm not trying to say that you're not going to be able to do that with weightlifting. I'm just saying that if you tell yourself you're going to start weightlifting 5 days a week and you've been doing yoga for the last year, we need to sit down and align our values with the goals that we're setting in the manifesto that we're creating. So here's the ChatGPT prompt that we use in order to reflect on 2024. I want to reflect on my past year. I would like you to help me through this process step by step. First, I need to remember what my year looked like, both the positives and the negatives in the key areas of my life, such as personal growth, relationships, health and wellness, career/studies, finances, hobbies and interests, and spiritual/emotional well-being. Ask me these questions one by one, and when I'm done, I would like you to remember all of this and identify any recurring patterns. For the key areas of your life in this section, you can adjust them as you see fit. For example, if you just like to focus on personal growth, relationships, finances, and spiritual and emotional well-being, just include those. I would also say that it was much easier to do this when I had the ChatGPT app on my phone, because then I could record my response, and it also just felt more authentic than writing it all out and feeling like deleting stuff and trying to rewrite it out again. It was just kind of spoken, and it took a lot less time. So if you have the ChatGPT app on your phone, I would recommend that you do it on that, just because it's easier. So I went through all of these key areas for myself, and it asked me these questions one by one, allowing me to remember and reflect on my past year, what I was proud of, what my challenges were. And it was all so insightful on remembering things from my past year and what brought me a lot of joy and what I actually kind of wanted to leave in the past. So this part of the prompting is to help you remember and enlighten you on those things as well. And then it spit out a overall pattern for my last year. It told me I had a year of transformation, authenticity, and in an alignment, which was beautiful to hear. It was great. And it kind of went over the things that I did good at and the things that I did poorly at. And so I could kind of read through that as a story as to what my 2024 looked like. And it was just a beautiful moment to sit there and read over my past year and congratulate myself for all the amazing accomplishments that I made, and for working through some of the more challenging aspects of my last year. Once I had finished that, this was the next question that I asked ChatGPT. Now, based on what you know about my year, please ask me questions that will allow me to reflect on my past year. Ask these questions one by one. I want these questions to help develop what I want in the next year. So please keep that in mind as I answer. So then it moved forward and it asked me some questions. Again, I use ChatGPT on my phone in order to answer these questions just because it was easier. Some questions that pops up were, what moments from this past year made you feel the most alive, fulfilled, or proud? And why do you think these moments resonated so strongly with you? What areas of your life do you feel could use more attention, care, or improvement in the next year? Why do you think these areas matter most to you? If you would like ChatGPT to ask you a certain number of questions as well, I would recommend that you put that into your prompt, because sometimes it will ask you like 8 to 10. And if you just want to kind of get through this quickly, then 5. But if you want to really sit down and dive deep, ask for more questions. If you want the questions to dive deeper, ask ChatGPT to dive deeper. A lot of this prompting is just the starting base, and as it starts informing you of what your year looks like and asking you questions to help you remember and get things flowing and allow you to reflect, if you feel like these questions aren't working for you, give it the directive that it needs in order to ask the questions that will best help you to reflect on your past year. After I had done some reflection, I had asked ChatGPT to develop a 3-sentence summary of my year. And I'm just going to read this to you because I was very proud of it. So, this year was one of profound transformation and self-discovery, marked by new beginnings, courageous decisions, and a commitment to living authentically. From starting meaningful projects like your podcast to navigating the challenges of a breakup and career changes, you embrace growth with resilience, learning to align your actions with your values. Through travel, deepened relationships, and a focus on health and spirituality, you opened your heart to life's beauty and pain, laying the foundation for an even more fulfilling future. Oh, that made me happy. So what I did next actually was I transferred over to my notebook in order to write some gratitudes for my year based on these summaries that it gave me and the time that I took to reflect. And I just wrote a few things that I was grateful for in this last year. And I also wrote down that paragraph just as a reminder to myself as to what a beautiful year that this past year was. So I recommend you go and you sit down. This is recommended by psychologists to sit down and to write down what you're grateful for because it will evoke a lot of beautiful emotions inside of you. So next I went to my journal and I wrote down the things that I was grateful for the last year. Now, after we have reflected and we went over these questions, I was ready to start creating my goals and my vision for the upcoming year and my manifesto. So this is my next prompt. Great. Thank you so much for helping me reflect. Now, I want to create goals and visions for what my life will look like in 2024. Can you start by asking me 10 questions, one by one, that relate to personal growth, career, spirituality, relationships, and health? Now, I picked these 5 key areas out of the key areas that I've chosen before because these are the pieces that I want to focus on. But as always, feel free to change these around as you see fit. You can include family, hobbies and interests, etc. Now, something to remember that I talked about at the beginning of this episode is making sure that these goals are aligning with who you are and what you want. And hopefully during the reflection process of 2024, you were able to go through what brought you joy, what you were doing good at, and what you can continue to bring joy into your upcoming year. So keep that in mind as you're creating these goals, as ChatGPT is just going to continue to prompt you and bring these answers out of you. And that's the use of this case. ChatGPT is not here to tell you what your year should look like. It's ultimately your responsibility to do that. This is just giving you the opportunity to reflect and prompt you and move you to challenge yourself into figuring out what it is that you want. Oh, I also just realized it accidentally says 2024. I meant 2025. So I had to reprompt it to say 2025 instead of 2024. And then I went through these questions myself. And in these questions, I was more specific about what I wanted. So, for example, I was more specific on the total income that I wanted to make for this year, how many times per week I wanted to work out, how many people I wanted listening to this podcast per episode. So, when you're going through these questions where it's asking you what you want from this upcoming year, try to be as specific as possible. If you feel like you can't be as specific as possible, go back into your reflection area and figure out what it is that you did last year that you want to improve into this upcoming year and how you can quantify that or qualify that in any way. And then once you've been able to do that, then come back to this section and start again. So make sure that you're getting in here and you're answering the questions as you see fit. Once I finished that, it said to me, "Thank you for sharing your goals. Would you like me to guide you further in setting actionable steps for these areas or focus on integrating all your goals into a cohesive vision for 2025? And I prompted back, "I would like to create 3 things with this first. A daily affirmation for myself based on what you know that I want for my upcoming year. I would like you to create a manifesto for me using first-person verbiage, something strong and confident that I can read for how this year will look like. And lastly, a weekly schedule. I would want to focus at least 1 day per week toward a specific goal, such as content day, freelance day, rest day, etc. However, there are certain goals that I would need to work on every day, so please also create a list of those goals that I would need to do every day." Now, the reason that I prompted it this way was because I had originally done it so it gave me a daily schedule. It spit out a daily schedule for me. And if that sounds interesting to you, then feel free to change around this prompt so it gives you a daily schedule instead of a weekly schedule. But that's not how I work. I'm not good at doing things exactly how it's supposed to be every single day. My day is usually pretty flexible. I like to be flexible. And I like to get things done when I have the time and when I can fit it in. And I've usually been pretty good at that. So if you feel like you want to do a daily schedule, feel free to do that. But I actually find this to be so much more helpful because it allows me to organize my days specifically towards what certain goals that I have. And then there's certain goals in there, such as fitness or meditation or practicing Spanish, that I need to do every single day. And so even though I don't have a specific schedule for that day, like wake up at 7 a.m., leave the gym at 8 a.m., take a shower from 8 to 8:30, start working from, wonderful, not me. This allowed me to accomplish what I needed in a way that was more fruitful to me. Prompt it as you see fit. And if you prompt it first and it gives you an answer you don't like, reprompt it. So first and foremost, it spit out my daily affirmation. So something that I can tell myself every single day that will continue to empower me to reach the end of my year and the goals that I've set for myself. And then it created my manifesto in first person language. Now remember, the reason why we made a manifesto is because this is our confidence speaking, and this is actionable steps as to where you're going to be during this year, where you're going to be at the end of the year. And again, doesn't work for you, continue to refine it as you see fit. This was so awesome to see and something that I can come back to. I'm going to put it into my Notion and I'm going to come back to this and read it when I'm feeling down or I need that little energy or pick me up in order to get my daily tasks done, my daily goals done. You can also ask ChatGPT to create those goals for you by asking it, based on what I've told you, what are some goals that I should set for myself? What should I do in order to accomplish these goals? So that's a great way too, but as I said, that doesn't work for me. I'd much prefer to just have my goals there, have my manifesto, have something to encourage me, and then have daily practices that I put into place. Read Atomic Habits. And these are kind of the little habits that I'll gain every single day in order to get to the goals that I want at the end of the year. And then it spit out my weekly schedule. So each day will be a little bit different. So building content on Monday, doing my freelance and consulting work on Tuesday, having a learning and growth day, networking and relationship day, financial and strategic planning day, rest day, spiritual day, etc., etc. And then, of course, it gave me my daily goals too, which was really important here as well. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're completing a little bit every single day, no matter how minute it is, based on what you had told it about what you want for this upcoming year. And asked me if this aligned with my vision, and I felt that it did, so I didn't prompt it anymore. But if you feel that you need to, go ahead and finish that out. Thanks again for listening to this episode. And I really am hoping the best for you throughout 2025. And this year is going to be a beautiful year for you in the highs and the lows, and I'm really excited to see how that goes for you. Please reach out to me on social media if you like and tell me about it. Tell me what your manifesto was or what your daily affirmation is. I would just love to hear what that looks like. I will be downloading a downloadable version of these prompts on my website. You can visit it at www.soleil, SOLEIL, rain.com. Again, that's soleilrain.com. And I'll have a downloadable version of this on my website, so it's just easier to access as well. Now, before we leave, I did want to go over the motivation piece real quick. A lot of people yell, motivation, motivation. If you don't have, if you don't like finish your goals or you're not doing this, then you're not a motivated person. They're lying to you. It's not about motivation. It's about the plans that we create. So if you have plans and you're consistent and you're flexible with yourself and your goals, and you can sit down and say, I'm going to be consistent in moving my body today. That doesn't mean you have to go run 10 miles, go for a little walk. Be consistent, be flexible, love yourself. Motivation is not an inherent characteristic within us. It is an actual thing that we can all begin to create through planning and using the tools that we have available to us to create a beautiful year. There's so much more that you can do on top of this as well. So many other amazing creators out there who also have great ways in order to set up your year, and Canva prompts and a lot of other things. I find for myself personally that getting into the really nitty-gritty details, like creating a very specific Notion page or creating a Canva thing that I can do every single week, doesn't work for me. But if you want to build on top of this, do some research and just go with whatever your heart desires. I really encourage you to write this down somewhere though, so you can come back to it as you see fit, especially your daily affirmation and your manifesto. So you can read it when you're feeling maybe a little bit discouraged, or read it every day if you like. I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to do. I don't care. Just use it to your advantage and have a beautiful 2025. Consistency is key. Keep doing that and keep being your best self, and I am so excited for you. If you like this episode, please make sure to like, save, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, and share with someone who wants to make 2025 an incredible year. I release an episode every Wednesday, so keep an eye out, and I'll see you next week. Bye.